Why was I feeling hopeful and inspired after finishing Civil War? Even as gunshots and the sounds of war stayed in my ears leaving the theater, I felt like Civil War's message was one of hope for the future. So, what was that message exactly? When Civil War was announced, I, like everyone else, was terrified it was going to insert itself into the political culture wars currently happening across America. Thankfully, this wasn't the case. There were no political parties mentioned and no references to current day figures. But as a result of this ambiguity, it seems like a lot of folks were wondering, what is the point of this movie? I generally appreciate movies like Civil War that don't really hit you over the head with some powerful message at the end of the film. To me, Civil War is about a relationship between two characters, the prevalence of violence across humanity, but also the immortal feelings of hope and love for the future. When Civil War started, I was struck by how despondent Kirsten Dunst's character was. We realized pretty quickly that she had been through a lot and was now numb to the horrors of war happening inside her country. Her main motivation was to get to the president and tell the greatest story of her career, a sit-down with an acting president presiding over a country at war with itself. So we go with her on this journey. But there's a wrinkle in this mission that she didn't expect. Young reporter Jessie, played by Kaylee Spaney, is determined to come along and make her first entrance into the world of war journalism. Lee, played by Dunst, is understandably against this idea. But with Jessie's inclusion into the group, it kicks off a massive character shift for Lee and ultimately sets up her path to redemption later in the film, when she saves Jessie's life. Lee's redemption journey starts to flower right before Sammy's death. Up until that point, Lee is focused on her job as a war journalist. She's approaching the task at hand as she has seemingly done for ages, with a steely cold focus on the war and nothing else, including herself. She doesn't console Jessie when she starts to break at the first sight of war, but instead instructs her to figure it out. She won't last long in this business if she can't keep her mental state stable. She does start to take an interest in her work though, and is impressed when she takes this shot during the fighting. After a particularly bloody battle, we see Lee in a contemplative state, with the sun shining on her. She's staying out of the excess violence after this battle, and instead it feels like she's starting to shift, possibly spurred on by the inclusion of Jessie in the group. And before you know it, Lee starts to feel protective of Jessie. Jessie is fully a part of the foursome now, and a real war journalist. When she disappears before Lee's eyes, she springs into action and puts herself and the rest of the group in harm's way to ensure Jessie's safety. And this is where we start to see the character's heroism really shine through. Sammy ends up losing his life to save Jessie, Lee, and Joel. Shortly before Sammy dies, we see Lee's first glimmers of humanity start to return to her energy and to her face. She brings Jessie food as she's resting, and adopts a gentler approach, turning into a little bit of a mentor for Jessie. But when Sammy dies, Lee shifts. She no longer cares about her job or her purpose. She just tries to do what's right in this world. She deletes the photos she takes of Sammy, she cleans up his blood in the car, she stops shooting the war, basically freezing and taking herself out of it. Until finally, she makes the ultimate sacrifice. She gives up her prize story and prize photo to save Jessie's life. In the meantime, Jessie has taken over Lee's role in this group. She's pushing the group forward, donning a new ponytail in the final battle, reminiscent of Lee's hairstyle from earlier in the film. This heroic act from Lee is what really stuck with me after the film. It wasn't the horrors, the blood, violence, and lack of love for our fellow humans. It was the choices folks continue to make even in the face of all this darkness. At her lowest moment, Lee chose to save Jessie. We see Jessie keep shooting, again taking Lee's place in front of the president, but we don't see what happens after that. I like to think that after this war is over and the dust settles for Jessie, she'll remember that her hero, the reason she got into this war, chose her over the story. Maybe she'll reconsider her dream as a war photographer, or maybe she won't, and she'll continue sending messages back home for other people to consider. Either way, we all know what image of Jessie's will be remembered after this war's over. And so when I think about Civil War, I actually think of it as a happy ending. I'm sure we all have a diverse range of thoughts on just how happy of a movie Civil War is, but to me, Lee made the choice to take a stand and try and end the cycle of violence. I think this is where we as humans can take the next step towards peace, when we choose to love and respect others, even as we ourselves are overwhelmed, fearful, and reckless. What did you think of Civil War? One thing I appreciated about this film was just how many different interpretations everyone has. I think this is one of the best films of 2024 so far, and I hope it gets rewarded during awards season this winter. The sound design especially was pretty insane. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more film essays in the future.